Hi guys, very good morning to you. Welcome to this video number 233, and in this video, as you can see, I'm going to talk about the introduction to the VBA. Let's explore this macro editor. Actually, let us know a couple of very interesting features about it. And if you think that you know the VBA and you just gonna pause this video, you just gonna close this video, please do not do that, because I'm going to tell you something very interesting, right? Many people who actually use a macro editor, who think that they know the basic of the Visual Basic for application VBA, they will be surprised that we have this feature available in your VBA, right? So if you're watching my channel for the first time, I would like to take 20 seconds from you, and I want to tell you that this is our channel, this is your channel. We have uploaded here 232 videos, and the videos are on Excel, the videos are on Excel VBA, the videos are on Access VBA. So you can go through the playlist and you can find out all the the videos over here. You just need to find it. I mean, what exactly you want to do, I'm not sure now, but I have created all these the playlist by the different names. So whatever you're looking forward to, I'm sure you will find the videos there, because I have tried my best to upload the videos on every topic, right? So today let's go ahead and let's start the introduction to the macro editor, right? So I'm going to start it from the very scratch, actually, because I'm not sure if you have the idea about the macro editor, if you don't have the idea about the macro editors, but we will definitely like to start it from the scratch. Okay, so guys, the first thing which you need to do, and by the way, yes, let me congratulate to each of you, because I think just a day or maybe 2 days back, I've completed my 500 subscribers, right? You must be seeing this now, the subscriber on my channel. You see that they are 502 or 501, I guess. So we have completed 500 subscribers, and I want to thank you a lot, because trust me guys, though I started this channel last year, but now I think channel is really getting very popular, and I'm seeing that a lot of guys, you email me, call me, and you write also the good comments, and from there I pick up your ideas and I upload the videos. So thank you so much for that. And one thing which is very amazing, that in the last 3 months, I think I've got almost around 200 subscribers, right? Which never happened. And trust me, this month and the last month was the greatest month in terms of the getting the subscribers. So thank you so much. I mean, I really want to thank you a lot, right? I don't want to sound like an emotional guy, but trust me, because you people get connected to this channel, and that is making me pushing me to go ahead and further upload the new videos. All right, so let's go ahead and let's start this. Okay, so guys, I want to tell you something very beautiful about this macro editor. Now, for all those who doesn't know that what we are actually going to talk about, we are going to talk about this record macro. This is called the macro editor, right? So one more thing I want to tell you, many people, they call me when they want to actually have the online training from me, or otherwise also people sometimes get confused. They say that they want to learn the VBA, but they also want to learn the macros. Or they ask me that they want to learn the macros. So the next question which they ask is that is it going to cover the VBA also? So let me tell you guys, recording a macro or writing a VBA, in my opinion, it is almost the same thing. I'll tell you the difference, and then you can judge by yourself. See, when you record the macro, basically what happens, Excel creates the VBA language for you in the backend. I'm going to show you that, right? When you say the VBA, then that means you are not dependent upon this record macro button. You directly go to the Visual Basic window and you write the syntax. So either you write the syntax or Excel write the syntax. The overall, the point is that after all, you're writing the programming, and that programming is called the Visual Basic for Excel, VBE or VBA, whatever you want to call it, right? So it really, I don't think so, doesn't matter. But yes, this is something which is very limited, and when you write the VBA by yourself, when you know each and everything, when you know the charts, pivots and the loops, then that obviously means that you are very much flexible in writing the code, very dynamic, right? Because this has a limitation. Recording macro cannot do everything, right? So that's why people learn the VBA. All right, so the first thing which you need to have is you need to have this developer tab on. If you're not going to have this developer tab on, then just imagine how will you get to this record macro, right? So you need to go to the file and you need to click on the option, right? So I'm not going to take much time because I know most of the people, or my subscribers who are attached with my channel, they must be knowing this. So you just need to go to the customize ribbon and you need to click on this developer tab, right? 2010, 2013, 2016, 2016 is the version which I am using. So the option would be there only. If you're using the 2007, just go and search in the Google and the option comes somewhere on the top 3 items here. Somewhere there they have this button, the checkbox is there, and they like this, they say that show developer tool, I think, and you need to check mark that. That's the only difference, but you can find it out. I mean, just go there and see that in the Google that if you're using the 2007 version, right? All right. Now once you have this tab on, then what you need to do, you need to record the macro. Okay, so let me tell you that what happens actually when you record the macro. So let us do one thing. I'm going to copy this entire table, okay, and I'm going to copy this entire table and I'm going to paste it in any other workbook. Maybe I can create a new workbook, okay, or maybe we can do one thing, we can create the workbook we can paste the data in the sheet 9 as well. Let me just delete this from the sheet 10. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. Now record the macro. The first thing which you need to do, you record the macro. All right, wonderful. Macro name, would you like to give any macro name? Well, you should give a good name. I always focus on this thing, that if you have watched all the videos, most of the time I always say that give it a proper name to your module, give it a proper name to your macro, which is sub, or you can also call procedure, or you can also call it a subroutine, right? Different names, but it's the same thing. Or even if you go and ahead, if you watch my videos on the user forms, there also I focused a lot that please guys, you got to give it a good name. So let's say I'm just writing here my first macro, because for me it doesn't really matter, I can write it anything. I just need to explain you, right? I'm not going to use this code. All right, would you like to give any shortcut key? You can give the shortcut key here as well, right? For example, if I press A, it is going to shift. The shift is automatically going to insert. Why? Because Control A is not a shortcut key for the, you can't give that because that is already defined shortcut key. Control A is to select the entire sheet. You must be knowing that, right? So when you insert the A, automatically the shift gets inserted. Anyways, we don't need that. I don't want to do that. That's fine. You want to create it, you can. It's not going to make any much of the difference. You just, the shortcut key means that by the shortcut key you can run the macro. Store macro, in by default you will always see this workbook. If you're seeing something else, maybe new workbook, personal workbook, please get this in this workbook, right? I'm not here to talk about that why we are going to insert in this workbook, but 99.9% of the codes are written always in this workbook. Maybe I can cover the rest of the things that what is the difference between personal and this workbook in some another video. Now what is going to be the description? You can add whatever you want to add. For example, I can say that this is the introduction. We are learning the macros or VBA, whatever you want to say it. Okay, so let me correct the spellings as well, I guess. Yeah, perfect. Now you click on OK and have a look on this. This record macro will change to stop macro the moment I click on this OK. Do you see that? That's the first thing. Now whatever you're going to do, that will be recorded in this macro, right? So note down my words, what I'm going to say right away. If you have done something wrong while recording this macro, don't stop the macro and re-record it. Just rectify, correct the things in the macro itself, because every step is going to be recorded. So if your macro is going to record your wrong steps, ultimately at the end of the macro, if you are correcting those steps, macro will be correcting the things. So I'm telling you this from my personal experience, because I have seen some people, they do copy and paste and they find that all right, they selected something wrong and then they immediately stop the macro and they go back and then they record the macro. No, it is not like that. You do all the steps, and if you think that there's some steps which you have done incorrect, just correct them then and there, and it will be added. It will be the same because we are doing the recording, right? All the steps will be recorded. So if at the end of the video, if the end of the basically the macro which you're recording, if everything is going correct, then no worries, not at all. But if you've done something wrong and stop the recording, then obviously there's no way. You will have to either edit the macro or you will have to re-record the macro. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, look at this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this entire table, I'm going to paste in the sheet 9. Now there are different ways of doing it. Let me first do this way. I'm pressing the shift key and I'm selecting this, because I know many of you would like to do this. Many of you would like to select the table like this. okay, using this shift key and going step by step, right? I copy the data. Okay, I go to the sheet 9, I paste the data. Perfect. Let's come back to the sheet and let's stop the recording, right? Now let's go ahead and let's have a look on our macro. So click on this Visual Basic. On the Visual Basic, you would see this recording in this module. Let me just scroll down it. So this is what exactly the macro is. You can see here, sub and then my underscore first underscore macro. This is the macro. I have written the name, you remember, and these are the comments which I have written there, you know, my first macro. We are learning the macros, right? So automatically these apostrophes are inserted because they are going to be treated as comments. So let me just backspace it. We don't need that. Now have a look on this code, guys. This is what I want to tell you actually. Now if you look at the code, what happens, it selected the range called A1 to Q17, and that is what exactly it happens. If from A1 to your last cell, which is Q17. Very nice, right? This is how this happened. So if I just simply go ahead and delete this and I try to run this macro again, is it going to work? So let's just go ahead quickly and run the macro. There we go. It's selected, you can see it copied it. Selection.copy is the code. If you don't know, sheet 9, it is going on the sheet 9. Sheet 9 is, it is going to select. That is how you address the sheet. I hope you know that. If you, just in case you do know that, it is very simple, sheets, and then within the brackets you write the sheet 9 dot select. Now it is going on the A1. This is how you select the cell, range A1 dot select. I'm already on the A1, and active sheet dot paste. Active sheet, whatever you have copied, it is going to paste. And then I'm going back on my sheet 10, right? Sheets and then the bracket sheet name dot select. This is the line to move around the sheets, right? So, and we are back on the A1 sheet. Perfect. Very nice, right? So now what you can do is I can delete this. So if you want to run it again, what you can do, you can go to this developer tab and you can click on the macro and, you know, whatever the macro you have. So there is another macro which I created, but I mean, that's a different one. So you need to find it out your own macro, and there we go. This macro is coming and you just need to click here, run, and there we go. The macro ran and you can see that the data is copied in the sheet 9. Let me delete that again. Okay. So if you would have created the shortcut key, you can also, you know, you would also run the shortcut key. That is the second way. The first way was to directly go here and just hit on this. If you hit on this, maybe you can press F8. F8 is to run the macro step by step, or you can simply use the F5 as well, right? If you want to do that F8, you can do that F8 from here, or you can directly press F8 as well, like this, right? So it is going to execute everything step by step. That's the first thing. Now if you want to run it in one go, then you need to press F5. Okay, F5 is the shortcut key to, but you will have to be on the VBA environment to run this. If I hit on this, you see that the macro created and we have the data in the sheet 9. And the third way is to just hit on this macro and just click on this, select this, and just run this. Or if you have a shortcut key, then you don't have to do anything. Just be on this worksheet and just hit that sheet, right? Another way of doing it, you can simply go to the insert and you can create a button. So I click on this shapes, right? In 2016 it doesn't really look like this shapes, you have to click here, but in 2010, which was my previous version, you directly see in the insert shapes, right? So but anyways, that really doesn't matter. So you can create the button here. So let's say I'm going to create the button here, and now what you need to do, right click on that and click on the assign macro, and whatever the macro you have, just select that macro and press OK. Now what will happen when you click on this, you see the macro will run and data is pasted here in the sheet 9. So there are different ways of doing it, right? This we generally use when we want to send this file to somebody, and you know, we want that people should be able to use it. So we will not like to tell them that to go to the Visual Basic and, you know, press their F5 or F8. That's only for you when you're designing the program. Once your program is designed, the next thing which you want to do, just need to create the button, right? Or maybe you can tell them that this is the macro name, just go there and press that. But this is the most used form actually, and I would say that you should also create the buttons, and you can also edit the text here. I mean, you can write here something that this is going to run me, you know, whatever you want to do it. I mean, you can put it anywhere, right? Or maybe you can put it here also. It is not going to impact at all, right? So the moment I hit on this, you see that the data is copied and it is pasted in this sheet, right? Now, so this is fine. I mean, this is okay, but the important thing which we actually want to do here is, let me just first of all put it there only in the somewhere here. Okay, or maybe you can do one thing, you can create a one extra row, and you know, you can just put it on the top of that row, on the top of the A1 cell, but that's fine. Okay, now understand guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some data, because this is now going to be a practical situation, because it may happen, you know, that you have a different data every time, right? Maybe your data increases day by day. Now the next time when you're going to run this code, now I'm not going to run this code quickly from here. I want to show you the step by step. Now what happens when you recorded the macro, there is a big flaw in this macro which macro editor is not able to recognize because of your, you know, the poor planning. Now what happens when you did the if you remember, when you selected the data, you selected the data using the single cell shift key, and you were, you know, going on the each cell like this. You were going like this, you know, you were selecting the cells like this. Or maybe if you put your cursor here and you press the shift key and you select the last key, results will be same, right? So in this case, what happened, instead of selecting this table, your macro selected only A1 to Q17. So automatically, you know that if I minimize this data is going to be copied now. What about this data? This data is completely missed, and you know, that's a big flaw. You will have a problem here. So if you say that, all right, so I will be back here, and you know, I can change this range, I can make this now Q20 because that is the last cell, then my question would be, then how many times you're gonna do that, right? Because you never know, your every day or every hour the data changes, then you will be in a big problem, right? So you want to make it dynamic, right? So this is the thing which I wanted to tell you. Now how to change this, that's the first thing. And there is another thing which I'm then, you know, further going to tell you. Now look at this, I reset the code. We are now going to record the macro in a different way. Now what I'm going to do is, instead of selecting like this one by one using the shift key, or maybe just keeping the cursor here and, you know, selecting this, what happens when you record the macro like this, it creates the, you know, these basically the absolute values of the cells, like it is supposed to go to A1 to Q17 only. That is what you don't have to do. So what you will do, you will make the use of the shortcut key. So I'm going to use here two shortcut keys. What are those shortcut keys? Let me tell you. The first shortcut key is, which I'm going to use here is, let me just write them here. You can pause the video and then, but it is very simple, you don't really need to pause the video. Control Shift and right arrow. Okay, you know that this shortcut key. If you don't know that shortcut key, then let me tell you, it actually takes your cell to the last selection, last value. For example, I'm on this A1 cell and I'm going to press Control Shift right arrow. Look at this, it is going to select the entire data in one step. Now again I have released my all the keys. I'm not touching any key. This selection remains as it is, and now again I'm going to press Control Shift because I want to go to the downward direction. I'm going to press down arrow. There we go. So Control Shift is the key which you don't have to release until you are through with your selection. Till the time you are not sure that this is the table which we want to select, it is still not selected, keep your Control Shift on. Let me repeat that. I'm on the A1. You have to be on the A1 because that is your top cell. I press Control Shift. They are still pressed. I'm not releasing them. They are still pressed, and I press the right arrow, and now they are still pressed. I released my right arrow. I'm not using any arrow key, but my Control Shift is still pressed, and now I'm going to select the down arrow, keeping my Control Shift still on, right? So it is going to select the entire thing. Now when you record your macro in this way, there will be a shortcut key which will be created. There will be a different code, which will be created for this. Let's go ahead and record the macro quickly and you will understand it. So let me just go ahead and record the macro, and this time I'm going to name it as dynamic one. Dynamic, okay, and using these shortcut keys. Okay, and you can write here, if you just want to write it down, Control plus Shift plus arrow plus down arrow, and then obviously so down arrow, or you can say that first right arrow and down arrow. Okay, all right, so let's just record the macro. You see that stop recording is coming. So now what I'm going to do, Control Shift right arrow and then down arrow. I copy the data, all right, and I go to the sheet 9 and I just select the A1 and I paste the data here. and then I come back to the sheet 10, and that's it. Let me stop the recording and let's go ahead and find out the code, right? So there we go, guys. Let me maximize the screen. Now you can see that this is so different from the previous code. You can see here, let me give some space as well, and so this is how the code is going to look like, right? So in this way, now you see that where you selected this range A1 to Q17, here there's no word which says that you got to be on this cell, from this cell to this cell, and that is a beauty of this shortcut key, Control Shift right arrow and Control Shift down arrow. And if you look at the code, it simply says that range selection, from the selection go to the Excel to right, which means Control right arrow, and from the same range then move Excel down. But one thing which you want to do here, which this macro hasn't recorded, which is that from which cell first it goes, because this selection means that whatever your active cell would be at that point in time, it is going to use the shortcut key from there. Let me tell you what exactly I mean. So let's just first delete this data, and now let's say when you're running this macro, you are on this sheet, on this cell, which is C9, which is wrong, right, ideally. So what happens when you're going to record this macro, when you're going to run this macro, I'm using the F8 key again, which is to run the step by step. You see what will happen. Look at this. From your active cell, that becomes your selection, and from that selection, it immediately goes to the right cell. And from there, it moves further down, but your data is not copied. So what exactly macro editor has missed, that you got to be on the first of all A1 cell. And this is how we define the A1 cell, right? A1 range, in the quotes A1 dot select. Now once you do that, it will always start from the A1. Let me quickly run this again, have a look on this. Now it goes to the A1, and from there you see that it has selected the entire data. Wonderful, right? It copied the data. Now it's going on the sheet 9, and in the A1 it is going to paste the data and it is going to come back. Wow, wonderful, right? I'm liking this macro, but the point is, let's give it some real challenge. So now what I'm going to do, why don't we just go ahead and insert some more rows. There we go. Okay, so now we have some more data, which is 24 rows. So if I'm going to run this now, let's see if it is going to pick up that or not. I know that it is going to pick, because obviously we have not specified anywhere that it has to go to this cell, right? We are using the shortcut key. So it starts from the A1, and look at this in the background. If I show you this Excel to right, it has selected the entire data, and from there, the moment you are going to run this Excel down, it is going to copy the entire data. Look at this, guys. So this is the thing I wanted to tell you, right? So in this way, your macro is created and it is now able to copy all the items. So this becomes a very dynamic macro, right? This becomes a dynamic macro. Now there is one more interesting thing which I wanted to tell you, okay? And that is, and you cannot ignore that, because so far I'm sure 50% of the people who are watching this, they might be knowing this thing, right? If you don't know, then that's why I'm recording the video. But one more thing I want to tell you guys. Now what happens, let's say what you're doing is, now let me create this sheet 9 data here, and let's create this sheet 8 blank, and let me just name it as final, let's say. Okay, now I'm giving you a task, which is to copy this data. And by the way, let's just make it short, so I'm just going to delete it just like that. There's no specific reason. We want to copy this data, we want to go to the final sheet, and we want to paste the data, and then we would like to come to the sheet 9, and from there again we would like to copy this entire data, and we would like to copy this, and we are going to paste the data here. Okay, but we need to ensure that this code becomes the code which we are going to do, that is going to compile both the data from these sheets. It should be dynamic enough. If I increase the data, then it should be able to pick up all the things, right? So this is what exactly we are going to do. So now what will happen, let's record the macro. So I'm going to again use the shortcut key. So at this time, recording macro and compile data. Let's say this is what exactly I want to do. Okay, so I click on the OK. Now I selecting Control Shift right arrow and then down arrow, copy the data. I go to the final sheet. I selected this A1. I paste the data. Okay, now once I paste the data, what I want to do is, I want to if you select here this cell, let's say I selected this cell using my keypad or mouse, whatever you want to do, because this is the blank cell and this is where I need to paste the data, the new data. I come back to the sheet 9. Okay, and now again I go to the A1 cell. From there I selected the table, Control Shift right arrow, and then of course your down arrow. I again copied the data and I go here, and in this cell I paste the data. Data is pasted. All right, very nice. Let's just stop the recording. Okay, now let me delete this and let's run the macro, and let's have a look that if we are able to run this or not. So I go back here. Now this is your basically the macro. You can see the compiled data, the name of the macro which we have given, right? Now the first problem is that it doesn't know from where it needs to start. If you have a look on this, somehow your macro is not able to generate which sheet you are supposed to start from. For example, if I run the macro right away, nothing will happen. It will select the entire empty sheet, but that was not the target, right? So you need to tell it which sheet you are supposed to be. So how you write the sheets, you have already seen that. You just need to write sheets word, and then you write the sheet name, which is 10, and then dot select. That is the first sheet basically. And once you are on the sheet 10, you got to be on the range A1. That is another thing which macro editor missed, but we can edit the macro, so this is what exactly we are learning in this introduction. Macro editor may not be able to record everything for you, but if you know a little bit about these things, then you can really make fantastic programs. So I just run this now. So you see that now it goes in the sheet A and it selects the A1. From the A1, it is going to select the entire data, copy the data, and it now going on the final sheet. Rest of the sheets are recorded very nicely. So basically the sheet where when you on the current sheet, when you record the macros, sometime it happens macro skips that. Macro never writes that. Macro editor is, sometime it forgets to give the sheet name. So that is what we have written here. But rest of the sheets, I mean, when you're going to change the sheet selection from that, the first sheet, it will record, like in this case, it is recording. So I go to the final sheet, and in the A1 cell, active sheet dot paste, the data is pasted. Now here I selected the A14 cell. Now it is coming back on the sheet 9. You can see here, from the A1, again these shortcut keys are used to copy the data, and it copied the data. It comes to the final sheet again, and here it is going to paste the data, right? The data is pasted and the macro works nice. But here we have one problem. If I delete this data again and I show you, now let's say I again increase the data. I'm going to copy and paste the data here. Now see what will happen. Now when you're going to run this macro again, there we go. It copied the data, and then in the A1 sheet it pasted, and now I'm on the A14. Now look at this, guys. This is exactly the problem I'm talking about. Now if you're on the A14, then what about this BCE? This data is going to be overwritten, because last time when you selected it, actually your data was having only 13 rows, and that is why you selected the 14. But this time it should have selected the A17, but it is not, because you have not used any shortcut key to go to the last row. So what happened? Look at this now. It selected the sheet 9 data, and once it copied the data, it comes back to the final sheet, and here it is going to paste the data where you have this active selection, and then these 3, 14, 15th row, they are going to be overwritten. So you will have a data loss, which I know you never wanted to do that. Okay, so what is the thing which we missed here? Basically what you missed is, when you're going to run this macro, let me run this quickly again. It copied the data. In the final sheet, when you're pasting the data, you should not select the A14. You should go to the last row, the blank row, using the control down arrow key. So I'm going to generate the code for that. Let's go ahead and record the macro. So record macro last row. Let's say I just name it last row. Now I'm on the A1. I select the A1 and I use the control down arrow. And from the control down arrow, I need to go one row further down. So I select this. Okay. Now I stop the recording. Let's have a look on the code which is generated. Then we are going to merge that. Look at this. This is the code basically, guys. Do you see that? Now this is very interesting. If I run this code, this basically selection.end Excel down select. This is for your shortcut key control down arrow. This takes you to the last value, which is not blank, of course. So if I use this, look at this, it goes to the A1, and from A1, if you use the control down arrow, this is what will happen. It will go Excel down and it stops here. But the point is, again it is going to write the A17, so your purpose will be defeated here. you will be again on the A17. So if you select this, if you cut this line, these 3 lines, and put it here in this line, this A14, you will not see any progress, because next time, who knows, maybe your data sheet 10 has 100 rows, then that means you are supposed to go to the A101 cell, not A17 cell. Now if you know the VBA, I know that there is a very good code which you can write, but if you do not know the VBA, then what will you do? Then guys, listen to me very carefully. Then there is another way of recording this macro, and that is using the reference, relative reference. I'm going to do the same step and look at the code. There will be a huge difference. So let's go ahead. Now I'm again on the final sheet. I record the macro, but before I record the macro, I click on this. You might not be knowing this. Click on this use relative. The moment you click on this, this gets highlighted, as you can see here, right? This is colored now. This is highlighted. If you don't want to use it, click back. It is gone now, but I want to record this macro. By default, people record the macro just like that. They don't press on this option, but I'm going to tell you the use of this. Very powerful option. You select this, you click this, and now you record the macro. I recorded the macro, and now I'm going to write here use relative reference. All right, so let's just hit on the OK. There we go. Same step. I'm going on the A1, and I'm going on the A1. I select control down arrow. You know that it is going to take me to the last value before the blank cell, just blank cell. Now to move to the next cell. Okay, now to move to the next cell, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to select this cell. I'm simply going to move one cell down like this. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Let's have a look on the code. There we go, guys. Do you see the difference between both the codes? That's the code which we have generated previously, where it was so specific that, you know, I got to be on the A17, but here you don't see any A17. It's amazing. Now let me run this code. Have a look on this. All right, I'm going on the A1, and then from the A1 I move. This line is same. You can see here, because this line is actually for the control down arrow. But what is the next step? That was important. So it says that from the active cell, offset me by 1 row and 0 column, which means that you got to move me 1 row down and on the same column. So if I'm on the same column, then that means this column will be 0, and you see that you are going to be on this cell. Now this code actually I'm going to use in my the compile macro. So how I'm going to use it? Have a look. I'm simply going to copy this. Later on you can delete the code. And here, you remember this line, this was the line, right? I just commented out so that you can do the comparison. I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so I'm going to paste it here. Now let's have a look. Let's just run this and let's see if we can do that. So I'm just going to delete this. Okay, and now we're going to run that macro again. So let us go ahead and let me run the macro. Okay, so there we go. We're starting from the sheet 10. Yes, we started from the sheet 10. This is the same macro which we recorded. From the A1, select the entire data using the shortcut keys and copy the data. I come to the final sheet. In the A1, I paste the data. Now this is the more important line. Now this, from the this offset minus 16, this is going to take me to the range A1. Now the problem with this code is, as you can see, that I have got the error here. The reason is that from the active cell, because you are already on the A1 cell. Now once you are already on the A1 cell, you can't really move minus 16. You understand? Offset means you are saying that from the A1 move 16 rows and 0 column, because it is minus 16, so it means that you are moving in the upward direction. If it is a positive, that means you are moving in the downward direction. So obviously if you are on the A1 cell, because of this line, you can't move further up in the upward direction. That's why it is giving you the error. So we don't need this line, first of all. Okay, so let me just remove that. Okay, now what is the next line? Selection.Excel down. So selection.end Excel down, you know that it is a shortcut key to go to the last row from the A1, control down arrow. So this should take me to this E. Let me run this, and there we go, as expected. Right, now the important line is this line, active cell dot offset 1 row. So it says that from the active cell, move me down. because this is positive. This is for the row and comma, this is for the column. How many rows and comma, the columns basically you're supposed to move from the active cell. Now there we go guys, and that is what exactly the code. Now this code is nowhere it is written that I got to be in the A17, I got to be in the A100, A200, whatsoever. It doesn't really matter. It always uses the control down arrow to ensure that you should be on the last value, and from there it is going to move one row down. Now for programmers who know this code, I know they are never going to use this option. But because we are dealing with the introduction, so initially you like to use these things like this. You can also use your own code. I'll tell you, just give me a second, and then you come back to the sheet 9. Again, you selected the data, copied the data, you come back to the sheet final and you paste the data there, and there we go. Right? If you want to test it, you can just delete the data, and you can do one thing. You can further add some more rows. So maybe you can just copy this and paste the data here, and let me just write here last. Okay, now the moment you're going to run this code again, see what will happen. There we go, we started, we are on the sheet 1, it copied the data, and now it is going to paste the data from the A1. Now it moves down, which is on the last, and from here it moves down. So it is very dynamic. Now it comes back to the sheet 9, copies the data and paste the data here. Wonderful, right? So this is how you can use the relative reference. Basically, what is the difference between relative reference and last row? And I must tell you, if in your interview somebody asks you that what is that thing about the VBA, you think, and I do not know, I may not be knowing, tell them about this option, that that macro can be recorded in two different ways, using the relative reference and then without using it. And definitely, I mean, if the person doesn't know, he would be asking you, what is it, right? So tell them that, you see, when you compile the data most of the time and you want to go in the last cell, you want to go in the last blank cell so that the next data should be copied on that blank cell. So you use the relative reference, because in the relative reference, you don't get to see these kind of a syntaxes that select range A17 dot select, range A200 dot select, range 1000 dot select. It is always going to generate this kind of a code that from the active cell move one row down on the same column. That means that you are just moving one cell down, right? So in this way you can make this code pretty awesome. Now I know the programming, so I can also do one thing. Instead of writing all this range dot, you don't really need to write this. You can simply write this as well, that from the active cell just move one row down, and on the same column just dot select it. That's the one of the same thing, right? But as a beginner, you can really use this relative reference a lot. This is really going to make your code very dynamic, right? So I guess we have done enough for the day, guys, and leave your comments, and just if you have any questions, write me, just throw your questions, and definitely we're going to talk about that in our next video. So I'm signing off, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that and watch all those amazing 233 videos, and I'll see you very soon with the next video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and have a wonderful weekend.